Hello, welcome to our session today. I am Karen Walsh, and I welcome all of you from all over the world to join Camilla Jensen and me to look at improv and applied improv and Lego serious play and how we can apply this to negotiation. This is the first in a series of 3 that I'm going to do, integrating in applied improv. So what I'd like to do is to invite Camilla Jensen to say hello. She has a PhD from ASU and has worked in design thinking, and she's certified in Lego serious play. And she is here joining us from Denmark in her afternoon.
Yeah.
Hi, Camilla.
Hi, Karen. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's actually 5 o'clock here and the sun has already set up in the northern part of the hemisphere. But pretty exciting that we could do a workshop like this online. This wouldn't have happened a few years ago.
That's true. So thank you so much. And I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, and our sun is just coming up this morning. So you may see it try to peek through the windows here in just a little while.
Nice.
And I want to welcome everybody who has signed up, and I know that there's others in Denmark joining us, all over Europe. I know some of you are there from the UK. Some of you are joining us from Germany. And we have several of you from the Middle East. I know Saudi Arabia is represented here today. And then over in Asia, we also have people from India and several of you also throughout the entire country of India and in Vietnam. So I'm so happy you're here from around the world. And here in the States, we have Shamshad, who's our wonderful producer behind the scenes in Northern California. And we have many of you from California, and we have many of you from DC and New York, and several that are joining from Wisconsin and Ohio and Texas. So I am so excited to see so many of you join us today. So go ahead,
Karen.
Camilla.
We got Poland and Germany on the map too. Just looking at the comments. What an international crowd.
Please check in. All across the world, we are so happy. As Camilla had mentioned, how many of us thought of maybe doing such a global event years ago? And some of the bright spots of the COVID shutdown for all of us, which I've spoken to many of you, is infecting so many of us around the world. So I'm just thrilled that we can do this. Today is an actual experiment. It's full experimental. So we're going to be doing some real work today. Every one of us is experimenting. And what I wanted to do with these sessions is to introduce a lot of you to these ideas of applied improv and Lego serious play. And we like to use a very action-oriented learning approach. This is the way we generally like to do our teaching and our workshops and our consulting. And what we have found is that in negotiation and complex decision-making, it's really important for us to be aware of our habits, our defenses, and our judgments. And we're welcoming Camilla here today to really talk to us a lot about how do we think while we build, how do we brainstorm and solve complex problems. And then it gives us a chance to really be reflective about our own mental models. So before I turn it over to Camilla for a second to give us some insight about Lego serious play, I wanted to just remind all of you that when I talk about negotiation, I'm really talking about any time that we're creating something new, problem solving, or if we're sharing limited resources, we are in a negotiation. So any time that I'm trying to get what I need and I'm working through others, I am in a negotiation. And we call this collaboration. We call this being creative. So what I wanted to do today was invite as my guest to our show, Camilla, who has a lot of expertise in innovation and creativity. And I heard an Italian designer recently say that creativity is the best vaccination in our COVID work world. So let me turn it over to you, and let's have you talk a little bit about the serious Lego play.
Sounds good. Let's see if we can get the slides up.
Yes.
That's how it goes with experimentation.
Yes, it's very experimental. So why don't you begin, and I will get the slide put up.
Cool. Let me do a very improvised introduction to Lego Serious Play then. So you might have heard about the name Lego Serious Play. Let's see if we can get it in my camera view. So it's a methodology developed by the Lego Group here in Denmark. And they developed it as a tool for people to talk together in organizations. And it's a way where you actually have this tool for communication. And it's great when you have sensitive or difficult conversations that you need to have, because it gives you a chance to think and reflect and feel deeply while you're building in response to a prompt. So one metaphor, one prompt that you might be given. Let's say you're on a team where things are a little tense and difficult. The facilitator of the Lego Serious Play methodology might ask all teammates to build a model of what the current team situation is making them feel like. So here you have the people in the team, and you can see how they're actively listening. First, they had the building process, and they're building metaphorical model. So here's how Lego Serious Play is different from the type of Lego play you might be used to doing. Normally, you build like a literal model. You build a train, or you build a car or something like that. That's a literal representation of something in the real world. But in Lego Serious Play, you're building in metaphors. So this might actually be about my work-life balance or something like that. You see how it's not a literal representation of it. It's something that enables me to tell a little story about what's going on in my life instead. So the second step will be to share that story. So what happens in the building process is you reflect with your brain, your heart, and it comes out through your hands. But then the second step, you have people that are listening with their eyes. And that's a beautiful little quote that one of my workshop attendees at Arizona State University gave me in response to this experience. She was like, well, Lego Serious Play is like thinking with your hands and listening with your eyes. And it's a lot like that. And really, the beautiful thing about good negotiation, it's not just what people say in a negotiation, it's also how people listen in a negotiation, how they take it in so they can better respond in a good way. So later we'll do a little brief demo of very quick exercise in Lego Serious Play that can help team members to appreciate the diversity of thought in the team. But basically, Lego Serious Play is about making the invisible more visible so we can have conversations about it and to promote the active listening. So I've talked a little bit about how it's about integrating the heart, the brain, and the hands. And we have the prompt being the first thing that you do. Then you have this reflective process where you build. Oftentimes it's pretty quick that you build, because you also want that constraint of time so people don't overthink things or overanalyze. You want it to come straight from the heart. And then the second, people take turns sharing their models. And then team members can ask questions about things that they literally see in the model. So in my case here, people might be interested in hearing, so hey, why is there a flag on here? Does that have a specific significance? So it defines or confines the conversation to only be about what you can see in the model. So you don't get off track in negotiation, and you don't get into blame mode about things that are not part of the key conversation. So that's part of how Lego Serious Play can help structure a negotiation process. Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Go ahead, Camilla.
So some of the main learnings, some of the outcomes, if a Lego Serious Play process has been really successful, is that you'll have more knowledge about your collaborators' needs. And that's going to help you to find common ground. Another thing is that it can help highlight the variations that there might be in cultural expectations. The picture in the middle here is from a workshop I did in a Danish engineering company. They work with a lot of people from Ukraine, and work cultures are different in Denmark and Ukraine. So it helped build a bridge between those two cultures. Also, you get to explore challenges that are related to an ongoing project. For instance, you get to dive deep into problem or potential areas. Then the real benefit is that you have this non-judgmental, you have a free thinking and playful interaction with your negotiators. And that helps get out of that really tense mode that is typical when things are stalemate. Good. That was it.
Thank you, Camilla. This is great. So we have a lot to say, but we thought we would do a demonstration for you, actual role play. So if you could use your imagination now, that you are about to meet someone by the name of Carla. And Carla is working for a manufacturing company, and she is having some trouble with someone in her team named Camilla. But in this case, her name is Diana. So welcome to Diana, and welcome to Karen, the VP of Audit. And as you watch our role play, we have a couple questions that we would like you to think about, and then to just put in the chat some responses. And one question is, kind of what tools or what points stood out to you in our role play? And also, what were some things that the Carla character learned about not using more controlling and defensive behavior? So those are two things we'd like you to answer. And then after we debrief and take your comments about this role play, then we're going to open it up to larger, open, more general questions. So I'm going to give you a little background that Carla, that's me, and Diana are part of a large manufacturing company. So it's very cross-functional, and we are now undertaking doing new technological, we would say game-changing digital technology. As the VP of Audit, I have been here for 25 years, and I have worked with Diana just recently, and she is a very high potential IT manager. She's got a lot of energy, but I'm having some trouble working with her, and I'm extremely skeptical that there's really a good business case to really go into our upgraded new technology. And I really don't want to invest in something so risky. I just think Diana's a little bit too excited about the possibility of being forward leaning. We are, after all, a manufacturing company. And I sometimes wish that Diana would just quit and go to a high-tech company rather than try to work in a manufacturing one. But I'm starting to notice that my team and Diana are getting really anxious, and they were really excited about this new, robust, innovative approach. And I'm afraid now they're starting to feel derailed because I can't get along with Diana. And I'm starting to feel like I've kind of lost sight of what I need to do. And I need to be more bold and need to be more creative. And I've talked to my coach, and I've been to an improv class recently. And I'm thinking that I would like to try something new. But let's hear Diana's thoughts before we start a meeting that ended in a stalemate.
Yeah, I think where my frustration is in this company is that I was hired in to do exactly what I feel like I'm doing, like creating more value, bringing on digital expertise, and energizing this aging manufacturing enterprise. And it's an important time to show that we can grow and create and be energized about all of this stuff. And then all of the focus on risk, it just feels like lead blocks around my feet. And I want us to have more flexible standards, because when it all is in red tape and bureaucracy, it's such an energy suck. I want to be able to be client focused. I want to be able to work with global clients when it fits their time schedule. I'm just so excited about all of these potentials, and I don't see why we should let inflexible budget cycles and strict schedules and stuff like that get in our way. I think decision making is like a tanker ship. It's like we can't really make things happen quickly, and I feel like that's a real problem. So I'm super frustrated. I'm also passionate about this, but I just don't know how to get through this. On the other hand, I've talked to my coach as well. I've gone to some improv sessions. I've learned some new techniques. So, I mean, I want to make this work. I'm just not sure exactly how, but let's see.
Okay, so Carla has decided that it's important for Diana and me to meet privately away from the rest of the team. And because of the commitment that I have as Carla, I have called Diana now back to a meeting after our stalemate from the last meeting. So thank you, Diana. Thank you for meeting privately today away from the team. And I really would like to be a lot more inclusive, and I really want to try to be a little more positive. And I think we both need each other, and that I have thought about my alternatives. Quitting at this point in time for me, this project, or quitting the job is not feasible for me. So that is something I can't do. I am optimistic we can find something. I'd like to, from some things I've learned, that maybe we could reframe and be in this together, because I think we have an opportunity to actually disrupt the manufacturing industry with brand new technology, smart sensors and better client satisfaction. And there's so much new technology I think you youngsters know. So it's not really an option for me to leave. But what are your thoughts about starting over, Diana?
Well, I mean, I've been frustrated for a while now, while I'm also super passionate about the digitalization and the disruption. I have to say I've been asking around. I've been seeing if there might be other opportunities, but with COVID and all that, I don't really see a lot of good other opportunities for me. So I want to stay in this company too, and I'm really excited about lifting us into the digital era.
Okay, would you be willing to be experimental today? And I'm not an expert in this, but I just learned some ground rules from Applied Improv that I'd like to practice, and you could help me with this, because I like these ground rules in the sense that neither one of us want to be taken advantage of or being judged, and it's very easy to default into protection. And since we are committed to it, one of the themes I learned at Applied Improv was just start with some basic ground rules, meaning that let's just be really experimental right now and improvisational, and see if we could find something. No commitment to the final solution. There's no right or wrong answer. I will work on my language to agree and say yes rather than but or no, like I've been doing in the past.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. And I really do want to make you and the young team look really good. So that's one suggestion I have of how we could maybe overcome some of these roadblocks to collaborating with each other. Do you have any ideas?
No, well, I just said no there. I really like hearing that you're willing to say yes and instead of no but, because I feel like that's what we've been doing so far, and it's part of the frustration. But yeah, let's open it up and be open to exploration.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other tips or suggestions you would make?
Well, my coach introduced me to this thing called Lego Serious Play, and we actually did a fun little exercise that I could introduce you to.
Okay.
Would you be up for doing it right now?
Do I need to be afraid?
Well, Legos are not dangerous unless you take off your shoes and you step on them.
Okay.
But then you might have to be afraid. But yeah, I have some bricks for you right here if you want them now.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So what I want you to do, I just gave you 6 bricks exactly like the one I have here. 4 yellow, 2 red.
Okay.
And I want us to take maybe 10 seconds or so, and I want you to build a duck, like the bird, a duck.
Okay.
So, are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, ready, set, build. Okay, I'm ready. Are you?
Yes.
Let's get our ducks up to the camera. You gotta hold yours up.
Oh, can you see it?
Now I can see it, Carla. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your duck. What do you notice when you see our ducks?
Well, we both have the eyes in the front. We both have a tail.
Yeah.
Yours is a little fancy on the top. But they're different. With the same materials. They're different though.
Yeah. See, that's what my coach told me. She's been doing this a lot. And like for 9 years, she's been doing the dog exercise in a lot of workshops. And in every workshop, everybody's dogs are different. And it's because we all think in different ways. Like when we're giving a work brief, we also interpret them differently. So here we're given the same brief, we're given the same prompt, build a duck, we're given the same time frame, and we're given the same materials to do so. So in work, that would be the same resources, right?
Yeah.
But we come up with different interpretations of what might a duck look like because we're all different. And I think that to me just illustrates that it makes the invisible visible of how do we get at things in different ways. And then it's not so surprising anymore. So I just thought I wanted to share that with you because it helps. It helped me. I thought about you and I when she did that exercise with me.
That's amazing. I just had an insight about this, that you are somebody who's very, I would say, like situation based. Like you really reward exceptions. You like to build on unique situations, unique time periods. Uh, Everything is positive for you when we keep it really open. But yet, in my world, my duck, my world view, because of my work experience, because of my generation in terms of where I am in the company, I am really rules based. And I am very attached to being very rules based. And I've been talking to my coach about this, that it's not about one or the other, but it's how can we leverage the best of your flexibility and my need to basically have this kind of certainty around the financials.
Yeah.
So when I think about that, we left out our impasse in our meeting that you wanted to get this done in 2 months and I wanted to get it done in 2 years.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked with that time frame, but
Tell me
and
what
you're probably shocked about my time frame.
What is it exactly you need? And do you have any ideas, given that I have these concerns? My need is that I have to be positive about the standards. We've done so well in this company, having very conservative financials, and we have survived. But I also know that we will not survive if we're not flexible or buoyant enough today.
Yeah.
What do you need? And give me some suggestions.
Well, what I've been missing has been the sense that there's trust in what I'm doing with my team, and that we can move forward. It feels like we have to cover our back at all times and do risk assessments on everything. But what I would really need is the sense of progress also for my team. I think it's important that we close some loops And I think we could do that by, if you could just give us a week or two and we could do some customer interviews, we could do some quick testing. I'd like to be very experimental with this, and I like to be customer centric. And in doing that, we could go out there and test, is this actually something where there's a job to be done from the customer's point of view? Because if we develop something where there's no customer pull, if they don't want it, then we shouldn't be developing it in the first place. So I'd like to do some of that ground research first. And we don't need that whole business case with risk management and all of that stuff up front, in my perspective, to do that.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
I know
scary
that.
to me. So how can we create a timetable then that's going to meet my needs for managing the time best?
How about I get back to you with a plan of what interviews we can line up within the next 2 weeks, and then at the end of those 2 weeks, we'll do an assessment. We'll do like a mixed study, qualitative, quantitative, and get you the results, and then we'll have confirmation of that assumption that there's a job to be done out there for the customers.
Okay. So could you put together a proposal of the timelines? And then you mentioned at some point that because I'm so concerned about cost, you suggested that some of the clients might be willing to pay for some of the experiments as we go through this process. Is that possible to get some financial help?
That's a good question. They might be. It's worth putting in there. We could try to design the questionnaire in a way where they'd be interested in the output too, because it would be a kind of a survey of the whole industry. So maybe that could be valuable to them. Let's set something up.
Okay.
I also think that because we do a quick test and we do it without a lot of programming hours, we just do the research, then it's not going to be very expensive compared to the longer haul.
That's much more satisfying to me. Okay, send me a proposal.
Will do.
All right, so the meeting ends, and then about a week later, Carla and Diana meet each other again. And I say, how are things going with you today? Now, Diana, things seem to be going well because I like the ideas that are coming out of your team, and your workshop looked good. I feel that something interesting also developed is that many of us are more interested now in learning all of this diversity across the financial, the technical teams, and all the cultural interests we have in this organization. And I feel better now about the way we're giving feedback. And I actually feel like we're contributing something bigger than ourselves. It's actually changing what's happening in manufacturing today. Diana, how do you feel? I just wanted to thank you for the innovation that you have brought to this team. And I'm really happy that the team seems more agile and happy and creative. Have you gotten any examples from anybody about how things are going?
Yeah, and I really agree. We have a much better energy flow. I heard from NPP yesterday, and they really said that they liked how empowered our team seems when it comes to making decisions and move more quickly and modify our experiments as we go. That they sense that we hear what they're saying, what they want in a solution, and that was important to them to feel heard. And that's also the feeling I'm left with from your side, right? Because I felt like you didn't trust me to take this project forward, and now I feel like I got a fair chance, and I really appreciate that. I also appreciate that now I can call you up because you do have 25 years of experience with auditing risk, and we do need some risk assessment on this project. So I think we've found a common ground where we can work more in synergy.
Well, this has been great. One of the other things I learned from my applied improv experience is that the debrief at the end, to actually go back and actually talk about what we noticed as we went through that improvisation process. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to ask you, what are the things that you noticed and how did it feel going through this process? So for me, it's something I learned about applied improv. It's not performance. It's not theatrical improv. It means that we build a creative and open space, but then we bring the invisible out and we talk about things that we noticed going through the process. So
Yeah.
one of the things I noticed for myself is I went from my shoulders were tight and they started to actually relax when I understood that you'd be willing to listen to what I needed to, because it's really hard being an audit. You're always everybody's enemy. So I appreciated that you can help me make audit a more meaningful job. So thank you. I noticed that going through the process.
Oh, that's awesome, Carla. I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I found myself the other day not wanting to just continue on the highway. I actually did want to take the exit that would take me to work. So there's definitely some improvement when it comes to my joy of working, and also not feeling afraid of opening emails from you anymore, which is it just released a knot in my stomach. I noticed that the team, of course, it's a little bit of getting used to, but they're starting to use that shared language of, hey, you got a yes and that one. So I introduced those concepts to them. Whenever somebody is going yes or sorry no but, then the other teammate catches them, and we try to find ways of building on and being constructive with what the other people put on the table. So that's really changed the team culture. So thank you for introducing me to that tool.
Well, thank you very much. All right, Carla is
Are we
going
off?
to leave the scene. And now back and roll. I just wanted to see what are some of the comments that are coming in. And I see something interesting here in terms of people like the way that these two characters could come to the table and really not be so afraid. And also, Flora mentions that cross-culture communication can be made a little bit more easy when we use the Lego play. And David, you say that this really helps us realize our diversity of thinking. So that's really, really incredible. And I got a lot of nice thumbs up and nice and very good from many of you. Do you see other comments there? Nonverbal actions, nonverbal behavior really matters.
They sure do.
Yes, very good. Any other comments just on our exercise itself? Both are willing, Brianna says, both are willing to not have to be right and willing to be open for an exchange. And that's one of our basic ground rules in applied improv, which really is easier said than done. And let's move into a couple questions now.
Mm-hmm.
Would the Lego exercise be effective if Carla and Diana had not agreed to be collaborative and to cooperate together in the first place? Camilla, I'll hand this over to you.
Yeah. Well, I think, of course, you'd need to bring people to the table, or at least in front of their computer screen, in order to have them build the doc. And if they don't want to build the doc, then other tools will have to come in that place instead. But if they are willing to build the doc, and if they are willing to get curious about, like, whoa, my doc looks like that, that's so different from your doc. If people can just get curious about the differences, and it's way more easy to get curious about differences that you can see, and you can talk about this thing that's externalized. It's not in here anymore, it's out here. And I think that takes some of the difficulty out of a difficult conversation, when it's externalized and doesn't feel as personal and you're not as attached to it. So it's really about this thing out here. You're kind of using your Lego model as a three-dimensional mind map to describe the situation from your point of view, but from an externalized point of view.
Yeah, and then I would add to that, part of our negotiation preparation includes first of all, this could be the best case scenario. Best case scenario is you approach the other and you have some ideas about collaborating. And this is why I call this approach to be of leadership, that anyone in the team can provide the leadership to bring in some of these techniques to break the impasse. But that's the best case scenario. Give everybody the benefit of the doubt, as we say in applied improv. We're going to expect the best. However, if you expect the best and you provide the safe environment and you have all the ground rules and others are not willing to participate, then that takes us to that part of our preparation, which is our BATNA or our alternative or our plan B. So then you may get a mediocre result, but at least you got the result. And that's why we're showing that many times people aren't aware that there are these simple, very human, basic elements that can break the impasse, kind of humanize the situation. And then it helps all of us understand that we have all of these invisible human dimensions that are impacting our willingness to collaborate. Camilla and I could talk about this forever because that's a big question we all get. We all get that, well, the other guy never wants to do this. Well, that's actually not true. And as Bjorn says, help us make the other look good.
Yeah, that's super important. And that can be difficult when you're at an impasse to find the motivation to do that.
Yeah. And Brianna points out that what do you do if someone is not willing at all? And here again, I think this takes us back to our very, very basic core of preparation and who are we and how do we want to show up and how do we want to be a leader? And in fact, in our next program, we're going to spend a lot of time with Brianna Beveridge, who's going to give us a lot of insight about some of those basic mindfulness tools that help us be centered and grounded, especially when the environment is so disruptive and others are extremely resistant to us. Any other comments? Camilla, we'll take more questions.
Yeah, let's see what we can find. What you see can be something I can't see. That's so very true. Like oftentimes we only see our slice of the cake. We only see things from our perspective. And I think that's part of why it helps to get things outside of ourselves or to use these types of deliberate structures to actually follow those steps and be more conscious about what's going on. And also literally hearing it from the other person's perspective and learning how to ask those questions that can open up for that conversation.
Okay, I'd like to comment on something Jay is pointing out, that say what you mean what you say, but don't say it mean.
Ah, that's funny.
We could talk about that comment for hours, Jay, because that is exactly what we talk a lot about in terms of preparation and quantum negotiation, is that do you really know what you mean to say? And that's why we spend a lot of time in preparation with our coach or with our peer group or just in our own reflection. Do I really know what I mean? What are the invisible needs that I am really attached to? What are the invisible behavioral or cultural behaviors that I'm attached to? So say what you mean comes from deep preparation. And we talk about this a lot in quantum negotiation. And then to mean what you say, that you can have your meaning in reflection on your prep docs and everything, but then when you come to meet someone else in a negotiation, many of us are very interested in neuroscience. We all know that the amygdala could just grab us and all that great planning and meaning that we wanted to say goes right out the window. We get afraid, we get hijacked, and then we start getting defensive and we forget what we really wanted to say. That is, to be more optimistic, to have a real sense of meaning and purpose and collaboration with the other. And then don't say it mean. And that, I think, falls very squarely into what we talk about in quantum negotiation as our strategy and tactics. And goes all the way back to the beginning. if we intend to be cooperative, and then we can regulate and we can manage when we are feeling triggered in the negotiation, then we will be more mindful of our behavior, because it's very easy to say something mean or derogatory or defensive. And especially, a lot of us are working in very cross-cultural settings. It could appear to be very mean to the other if we are not mindful to that. Camilla, comments on this statement, Jay's statement?
Well, I just thought it was such a funny play on words, and there's so much truth to that. That's why it's a genius statement. So yeah, it brought a smile to my face, and I think, yeah, it's good advice. One of the things that I can tie it to over in the comments is, of course, words matters. David Armstead mentioned that. He also mentioned that nonverbals matters, like, for instance, eye rolling. And like, I think it's like 70% of our communication that's actually the nonverbals. So I'd like to maybe bring this up with you, Karen, as a negotiation expert. You must have come across that a lot. Like, how do people deal with the nonverbals? How do we respond? How do we call people out if they're doing eye rolls at us? Or, because that's a really difficult conversation. It's like, are you being too sensitive, or like, it doesn't give you any bruises, there's nothing to show for it, but it can still be uneasy in a difficult conversation, right?
Exactly. And that's why I think many of us who are interested in the quantum element of this, the invisible elements of this, know that our nervous systems are all connected. And that when somebody does an eye roll or a facial expression is in disgust, it's a microsecond. And our nervous system does and can read that. So a lot of what we talk about in cross-cultural negotiation especially is, how can I become more aware? Why does my stomach ache when I'm in a room with that individual? They say they're cooperating, they're doing all this great thing, but yet my nervous system feels that there's something mean or tricky going on. And that's because their micro expressions on their face are being read by my nervous system. And part of cross-cultural work is also to know, maybe they will do something that makes me feel weird, but that's only because I'm attached to my own perspective, my own perspective around what does cooperation mean. So that'd be a whole nother session we could do, is exactly on nonverbal behavior. And that's so much why it's important for us to know what is our intention, and are we aware what micro expressions we're sending off to others. We may say we're cooperative, but we're nervous and anxious and agitated internally. They can feel that incoherence, that disruption, and it's not going to build this kind of a attraction to be able to negotiate freely with each other. I like this. The Lego exercise shows us a very innovative way of handling conflict and ways to think about it. There's always solutions. I love that. Yeah. I started studying conflict resolution in graduate school in the 1980s. And so much sophisticated work is done on conflict resolution. And I just have been flabbergasted with how these really basic human elements can solve conflict in a much easier and satisfying way. And we tend, because we're so smart and we're so accomplished, we tend to forget some of those most human dimensions that we could bring into these conflicts. Camilla?
And with the Lego, for instance, it's so low tech and it's child's play, you might even argue. But I found in my research, where I bring it to bear on wicked problems, I have people from various different disciplines collaborate around externalizing what are their perspectives on a complex problem. And it's just way better problem solving when you incorporate many people's perspectives.
It's such a rich resource.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the work that I've been doing with Coach Jeffrey, if any of you are interested, look at our LinkedIn series we've done on quantum. Is we've talked a lot about how that invisible is the potential invisible quantum field that's always there. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean that it's valid. I take one more question here from Walter. Greetings, Walter. What to do if the other forgets the exercise and what has been gained in the follow-up meetings? Camilla, you want to add to that?
Well, maybe try to see if you can trigger their memory. Maybe you've been taking pictures of the models or been doing other things. Maybe you start by sharing what did you get out of it, and that might trigger their memory as well. And ask open-ended questions. I think that's the best way to invite people to step onto the floor and be part of the sharing, the debrief afterwards. Do you have other ideas you want to add, Karen?
Yeah, I love what you just said. And I guess this is one of the things I've learned from applied improv as well, is that we can actually talk about these things. We've set up a safe environment. We just remind each other. Remember, we're going to try some new ground rules. This is just experimental. Let's go back to those ground rules. And at our applied improv classes, we start every class starting out with the basic ground rules every single time, because we all forget. It's so easy to default back. This is a very common theme. And remember, the themes we've talked about in neuroscience is it takes at least 21 days to change a neural pathway, which is our behavior. And it's not going to happen in one meeting. And it becomes a code, it becomes a practice. So you keep debriefing and you keep practicing with each other. And this is why those of us who are coaches encourage coaching, because it does require constant practice, debrief, and just keep practicing.
Yeah, if you're the leader of a team, I really recommend having some kind of improv or Lego exercise, maybe every day, maybe every second day, to kind of get the team into that playful flow where they practice relating to each other in a new way. And maybe also put up on the wall a big poster of the improv principles and those characteristics that come with it, like the openness, the acceptance, the working with what is. If we could apply all of those principles in modern work life, imagine what we could do.
And Jay, as you say, we all have acquired this behavior. And this is really what we all have learned, what our brains have been acculturated to. So for example, in Carla's case, she acquired this behavior because it was rewarded and it was reinforced and it was expected. So she carried that around. And she had to unlearn this behavior when she started to work with somebody who had a totally different, Diana had a completely different acquired behavior because of her acculturation, her experiences. So both of them were unlearning some old habits and then relearning some new habits. And that's why reinforcement is important. It's not right or wrong. It's just if we are going to move together and create abundance and to get solutions, we need to actually be able to change our neuroscience, our brain and our pathways, which is not easy.
No, and some of it is core to our character, our nature, the way that we're put into this world, and part of it is an acculturation. It's how we've learned that we would succeed in life. Right. Like the Carla character learned that she did really well when she was looking at the risks, and the Diana character learned that when she was thinking outside of the box, that's where she got the good grades in school or succeeded with her teams. But there's also the core element of our instinctive ways of doing. There's this principle called conation, CONATION, and it's about how do we approach problems and problem solving. And some people are by nature more risk adverse than other people. And the Kala character probably more so than the Diana character. I think those two women were in two extreme ends of that spectrum, and that's why they
Yeah, right.
They get into that stalemate, right? But just getting the realization that they are on two different ends of the spectrum can help diffuse some of that tension. So if we can make things more explicit, and if we can like externalize them out into the real world, maybe talk about that spectrum of risk or risk adverseness, like we're pretty far in the problem solving already, or conflict resolution.
Excellent. And thank you, David, for the comment, because this ties perfectly back with the work that we're doing at Quantum Negotiation about the importance of anchoring and our commitments and all of these various changes. So this ties back very well to quantum negotiation, because we think of negotiators as those who can actually anchor themselves in terms of who they are and what they want and why they want it. So then they can be like a buoy and be very flexible in terms of their behavior, and that they're able to style shift, but yet still be very anchored in their own values and in their own commitments to each other. So it's very quantum in that sense, is that you're both extremely anchored and clear, and you're also very buoyant. So this is why our business, my husband Paul Kinzinger and I have the business called Clairvoyant Leadership, meaning that when we can be very clear and anchored, clear, then we can also be buoyant. So clairvoyant leadership then means that we are very anchored to who we are and what we want in our preparation. And one of the themes that really lead to this ability to be buoyant is that negotiators really can restore themselves. If we get tipped over as a buoy today, and many of us are struggling with all of the turbulence and the imbalances that are happening, many of us have found that the more we understand ourselves on the cognitive level, the emotional level, social, physical, and spiritual, that we can be more buoyant. So this is something you could explore with us at Quantum Negotiation, is how do we go deeper into understanding how we think? Do we basically have a scarcity mentality or an abundance mentality? Do I feel afraid or do I feel optimistic? Do I feel and behave very defensively, or do I behave in a collaborative way? And in terms of physical performance, so many of us know that the more drained we are, the more tension and stress there is, we don't have the capacity to listen to others. We don't have this ability to feel optimistic. So this is why brain and body and spirit, all of these things work together. And then I think a very important dimension is our spiritual dimension. What is it that we believe in? What's that bigger purpose that drives us, not just in this negotiation, but in any other negotiation in our life in general? So Camilla, any other comments you'd like to make?
I think this has been a lot of fun, and I'm glad to see that you put the principles from improv up, because there's just so many good intentions or many good reminders in here. One of them that is jumping out at me right now is the assume good intent. And I think oftentimes when we have a negotiation situation, it's actually the past that we bring into that situation, and maybe about 15% is relating to the current situation at hand. But if we assume bad intent, that's what we see. And if we assume good intent, that's typically also what we see.
Excellent. Want to talk a little bit about yourself, Camilla, and how everybody can find you?
Sure. So I mentioned that I've been working with Lego Serious Play for quite a while. And one of the new offerings that I started doing last year was this Lego Serious Play online. So we can do strategy workshops. In this case, it's pictures from an improv workshop, actually. So we had a lot of fun in December, as you can see on Jeff's hat, and improvising with Lego Serious Play. But lots of fun offerings when it comes to doing strategy workshops, when it comes to doing coaching and so on. So yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You see my full name here, Camilla Jensen, and that should help you find me.
Thank you. And if you have her email, just please contact her. And for me, I'd like to encourage all of you to find my webpage at clairvoyantleadership.com. And under the More tab, I have something called Microlearning Curriculum. And this is what I have been working on for the last several years, probably about 2 or 3 years, creating a lot of content that you can just click and buy. That I am reaching a broader classroom now rather than the 4 walls of a university. And because of the virtual world, which I think is going to be with us, I have an audio course that you can click on and just download. I have a tutoring and coaching course, and also all kinds of other programs, our book, Quantum Negotiation book, in any format that you would like to listen or to read. So please, come to that page and get all of those resources. Pretty handy. Here's a copy. Here's what the page looks like on the Clairvoyant Leadership page, webpage. And as Camilla and I have been talking about, we would love to have you join our Arizona Applied Improv Network meeting, which the next meeting, we have one once a month, is February 9th, and it'll be at 11 o'clock Mountain Time. But this is another benefit or a minus in terms of COVID, is that we used to all meet at the Tempe Public Library for our improv classes. But because of COVID, we are not able to do that. So we are meeting on Zoom, and this will take place in the indefinite future. So if you're interested in coming to our session, it's not taped, it's not broadcast, it's just for our closed group. If you want to come and play, write to me and I'll put you on our mailing list for the Zoom connection. And lastly, I would like to invite all of you to attend the next installment number 2 out of 3. I'm going to do 3 of these applied improv sessions in the spring. So in February, I'm going to invite Brianna Beveridge, who is a wonderful, very well experienced, and someone who works a lot as a coach, applying applied improv and mindfulness in her work. So please join us there. It'll be the same time. And Shamshad has already created an Eventbrite, and we will also start sending that out and having all of you please join us if you can on February 25th, and Brianna and me will be at that session. So that's all we have for today. And I know that many of you have such crazy time schedules and you're working 24/7. So I hope that you all have a great week, and that we all make it through the global COVID crisis together. I'm always inspired when I hear the creativity that's taking place around the world with all of you in terms of what you're doing to cope and to create. Camilla, one last word.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me in. Next time when you and Brianna are on, I'll be in the audience.
Okay.
And contributing with some comments and questions. But this was fun, and I just wish everyone a good day, good evening, wherever you are around the globe. This is so wonderful that we can meet up like this.
Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule there. And now you can go have some dinner.
Yes.
And I just have to do one shout out to Shamshad. Thank you so much for bringing us into the 21st century and to experiment with this new formula to create a show together. You're a genius and you have a lot of patience. So thank you very much, Shamshad. And thank you to everyone.